I'll begin, and you can set up the recording if you want to. Nama Om
Recording in progress.
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachari Nirvisesha Sanyavadi Paschatya Sakarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. As most of you know, I'm in China, and I got a little confused about scheduling because only a short while ago we had another class on Nectar of Instruction, text number 9. But here we are with Isopanisad Mantra 1. And I'll begin because I'll assume that you've already discussed the invocation verse. And the invocation verse, as the text shows on the screen, explained that the personality of Godhead is perfectly complete, as are all his energies. All forms of incompleteness are due to an incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. So that you learned with the invocation mantra. So
Yes,
how does the invocation mantra flow into text 1 or mantra 1? Mantra 1 describes how to regain that sense of completeness. And how? Devotional service, of course, but specifically acting in relationship with Krishna. The acting in relationship with Krishna, that's avideya, acting in our relationship with Krishna. And in the language of Isopanishad, this is called Ishavasya, or Ishavasya consciousness. It's a conception of Isha. Isha, we know, Isha means the Supreme Lord. That's a standard terminology for the personality of Godhead. Isha, the Supreme Lord. Of course, there's Parama Isha, Parameshwara, but the Supreme Lord, Isha. And then this word Vasyam or Vasya can be taken in two words, in two ways. Of whom, in relation to, in other words, the Supreme Lord, or looking at how Prabhupada has translated the verse, the Supreme Lord is the owner and controller. So Isha can mean owner, and Vashya can mean being controlled or fully controlled. Either way, we get the idea. Now, when Satyavrata requested me to speak on this topic, he specifically requested this point, how we must use prana, artha, diya, and vacha. So those are things that are either us or ours, I or and mine. You're well familiar with the I and mine conception that's within the Vedas. Lamai. And what is mine? So prana can be thought of as I, or it can be thought of as mine. It's our life air. And then from mind, this body, comes work, because the soul animates the body. And One of the things that people want from work is the result, or artha. So commonly, artha means economic development, but even more literally, it means something that's wanted. So something, our life air, something that we want, do that to get something that we want. Diya, the intelligence by which you work, the intelligence by which you work for fruitive or for spiritual or for pleasing Krishna. So when it's used, the diya is used for the pleasure of Krishna or in the sacrifice for the Supreme. That's what's recommended in this verse. Vacha, power of speech. For intelligence, we'll go backwards. The power of speech, the intelligence, that which is our anticipation for doing what we do, our goal, our sense of attaining something desirable, and our life air. It's pretty comprehensive. There's these four terms are used from time to time, not exhaustively, but in Prabhupada's writings, because these are standard terms. It's I and mine, prana artha diya vacha. So that which is of this world, of course, Isha, the Supreme Lord, Parameshwara, he is the Supreme Lord of everything, including spirit. So I should be in service to Krishna, and everything that's mine should be used in service to Krishna. And that's the spirit, the Isabhasya spirit or Isabhasya consciousness. Here's the verse. And if you like, you can say it along with me. I'll say it slowly. Isabhasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena chaktena bunjita magridhakasya swidhanam. So he is the sole proprietor of everything. Idam sarvam. Everything animate or inanimate, that's sarvam. That is within the universe. Jagat is controlled and owned by the Lord. So he's the owner, he's the controller. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. Nice word, quota. What does quota mean? We'll explore it a little bit. And one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So going back to the prana, there was not a quota of prana, but it's something who we are. And there's a quota of artha, the quota of that which is obtained through our work. Diya, I guess we could say we have a quota of our intelligence. And vacha, use your vacha wisely. There's a very similar verse, almost identical, very similar verse in Canto 8, Chapter 1. Atma vasyamidam vishvam yat kinchij jagatyam jagatena chaktena bunjita magridha krasya swidhanam. Almost the same from the first verse of Isopanisad. And here is how Prabhupada translated it. Within this universe, idam vishvam, the Supreme Personality Godhead in the super soul feature is present everywhere. Wherever there are animate or inanimate beings, therefore, one should accept only that which is allotted to him. One should not desire to infringe upon the property of others. Of course, this is a law of Manu, and we're entitled to that which is our share. our quota, that which is, so that's subjective. What does that mean? Well, we're entitled to it, and we're not entitled to infringe upon the property of others. So when we accept our quota, there's the Isabasha consciousness, how we engage with I and mine, and the sense of it should be done for the satisfaction of Isha, and we don't encroach on the property of others. Here's 3 parts to this mantra. 1, Isabashimidam sarvam yat kincha jagat yam jagat. So only controlled by the Supreme Lord, everything, animate or inanimate. Tena chaktena bunjita. Nice. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. That set aside means we're being maintained. Nityo, nityanam, chetanas, chetananam, eko bahunam, yo viditati kaman. You all know that verse. It's a Shruti mantra verse. We're maintained. The one maintains the many, and we're amongst the many, and we're being maintained by the one. And that one who's maintaining the many has our quota, or things necessary for himself. Now I'm going to pause for a moment. Someone's knocking on my door. Let me see. Oh, man. I think you could just put it here. Should I leave the door open? I'll leave the door open. Leave the door closed or open? Okay. Anytime. Sorry about that. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself. So that's a nice, what's necessary for me may not be what's necessary for someone else, etc. So there, it's subjective. What's my quota? It's very similar. Language is different, but very similar concept to the definition given by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the definition of bhakti. Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam. According to that which is appropriate for each one of us, according to suitability, Prabhupada is translated. So, according to suitability, what we need is to maintain body and soul together. And one person's idea may be different than another person's idea. And the concept in transcendental life is to leverage a little bit in the direction of less is necessity, not more through passage of time. And ma gridaha, kashasvidinam, we should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So to whom do they belong? Isha, the owner and controller. It all belongs to him, and he's maintaining each of us according to our needs. Here's Prabhupada speaking on this verse from London, 1973. Everything belongs to God. This is self-realization. My body belongs to God. My mind belongs to God. My intelligence belongs to God. I am spirit, soul, and part and parcel of God. Therefore, everything belongs to God. Isabashamidam sarvam. Everything belongs to God. So, If you don't use it for God, that is called demonism. And if you use it for God, that is devotion. That's all. Pretty black and white. But Isavasya, we're getting the very clear indication is it's not only recognizing that things have an owner and controller, and that something has been provided for us for our well-being, but even that which is provided for our well-being is meant to be used in service to the source. His little cartoon. Little boy is saying to his mother, only 2 cookies. Is this a quota system? So what does quota mean? What is one's quota? In the purport, Prabhupada speaks or writes about the cow. The cow gives milk, but the cow doesn't take milk. The cow is for, the calf, of course, takes milk, but the cow doesn't take milk because it's part of what a cow does for others. He speaks about dwelling. So everyone is a necessity to some degree or another. There's some kind of dwelling or place of residence where we park our body, at least at night. And of course, if you're the 6 Goswamis who sleep under a different tree every night, and someone else may have another facility. So we have some requirements, and those requirements are being made. And now, for specifically, what's the quota for a human being? Now, we have intelligence, and we can try to accumulate more than we require, because animals don't do that. Birds don't do that. They have what they require, and they work with what they require, and they move on. The human being can make a mistake, and sometimes do. So we shouldn't accumulate or hoard, or except for emergency cases. Here's Prabhupada's words. A human being is therefore required to live the authority of the Supreme Lord and become his devotee. He must offer everything for the Lord's service and partake only of the remnants of food offered to the Lord. This will enable him to discharge his duty properly. That's a human being's quota. The concept of what is one's quota is being explored here. So for the human being, for example, necessity is eating, and the necessity of eating for a human being is you take only Krishna Prasadam. And how much? So that you can discharge your duty properly. If you eat too much, if you eat too little, then you may have a problem in discharging your duty. So for the purpose of carrying out our overall service to the Supreme, that's our quota. And that's how you draw the line. And subjectively, like, Bhima, he had a different requirement than most of the rest of us. But that was his quota. Here's a nice painting and a nice translation from Bhagavad Gita chapter 12. Those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, this says Isavasya, spirit, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their mind upon me, O son of Pritha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. That's the reciprocation from Krishna. So Isopanisad Mantra 1 does not address the reciprocation aspect. It's addressing what our duty is aspect. how do we conduct ourselves in relation to that which is supplied by the Supreme Lord. Now, this verse is describing the reciprocation part. So, this little image of the donkey. When we are carrying out our duties, we shouldn't be donkey-like, dutifully carrying some heavy load. We should be in a mood of devotion, that which is appropriate for us, according to our strength, according to our ability, according to our capacity, according to our nature. We offer that which has been given to us back to Krishna, and not just in a blind work mode, but in a devotional mode. That's the emphasis in the verse, by the way. And knowing that, having that consciousness, or Isavasya consciousness, then Krishna will deliver us. Still on the topic of quota, something is arranged for us as our quota, and it's not advisable to encroach on the quota that's for others. As you know, this is one of the Chanakya Pandit sayings. It's one of the 4 characteristics of an intelligent person, is the property of others is like garbage in the street. So recognize what you need, that which is provided by legal means or proper means or nature's way, then you can accept that as your quota. You've most likely studied this verse, so just covering points quickly. Something that Prabhupada spoke about often, not always, but often, was spiritual communism. That is the peace formula. Isopanisad, he calls it in some places spiritual communism. So there's, what's communism? Everything belongs to the state. And therefore, work should be done for the state, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But work should belong to Krishna, because it came from Krishna, not from the state. And therefore, it's spiritual communism. And one who lives according to that Isavasya concept, that's the peace formula. Of course, Prabhupada wrote an essay, The Peace Formula, and propagated it, and it's resting on this first verse of Isopanisad. Here's a similar understanding from Bhagavad Gita chapter 5. You know the verse? Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suradam sarvabhutanam yatvamam shantim richati. Peace formula spoken in different language. These different parts in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary, the bhokta of all yagyas and all austerities, tapa, the Supreme Lord of all planets, Sarvaloka, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, Suradam Sarvabhutanam, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. That doesn't mean material miseries stop, but the pangs of material misery, that is how consciousness may be impacted by the circumstances of duality and everything that's of this world. This is protection. It's the peace formula. Again, on the theme of communism, Prabhupada didn't particularly like communism, but he liked spiritual communism. He didn't like capitalism particularly, but he spoke about it in relation to the Isavasya principle or Isavasya spirit. And Prabhupada's comment, he would sometimes address political issues, political meaning how people organize themselves to direct the activities of society. So it's sociological or political. But when political parties fail to accept, endorse, embrace the Isavasya spirit, it brings failure to their whole system, failure to the people, failure to the leaders, failure to society. Capitalists, communists, and fascists, and socialists, and anarchists, and monarchists, they have different models of failure. Now, the closest, of course, is monarch, but even more specific to the verse, Mantra 1, it's spiritual communism. But of course, communism doesn't say everything belongs to the supreme, everything belongs to the state. So mundane communism fails because they fail to see the proprietorship of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Again, if we can simply learn that everything belongs to Krishna and use only our quota, then there can be peace and prosperity for ourselves and in the world. Not likely is everyone going to embrace Isavasya spirit. So at least we as individuals and we collectively as a group of individuals, the Sangha of Vaishnavas, try to live by the spirit. And if we live by the spirit, it adds weight and strength and purity, because purity is the force. Purity is the force. It adds force or strength to helping bring peace and prosperity to the world. Let's step back. And it's Kali Yuga. And there's a lot of turmoil because it's Kali Yuga. And sometimes it swirls more and sometimes it swirls less, but it's always swirling because it's Kali Yuga. And Chitta Vritti, the swirlings of the mind, are meant to be checked or subsided or brought under control by yoga. That's a definition, Patanjali's definition of yoga. It's meant to bring a close to the swirlings of the mind, and of course, then the social interactions and our interactions with nature. It's a big, big, big topic. The big, big, big topic. How we relate with each other, how we relationships, how we relate with nature, and wanting peace and prosperity, especially wanting prosperity, but also wanting peace instead of strife. There has to be, in principle, the Isavasya spirit. Here's a little cartoon. The harder I work, the sooner I will become a king. And the king says, the harder he works, the longer I will be a king. So this is how materialists look at themselves, the pawn and the king, the subordinate and the superior, and neither are thinking about the supreme king in material conception of life. Same lecture, same year, Prabhupada in London. This is now Bhagavad Gita 115. One can utilize God's property as much as he requires, no more than that. Then he will be a thief. He will be punishable. Just like a father's property, each and every son has got the right to live under the father's protection. Ma gradaha kasya svidanam. That is spiritual communism. So again, ma gradaha kasya svidanam means you don't accept things that are meant for others. You don't encroach on the property of others. Ma gradaha kasya svidanam. That is spiritual communism. Whatever wealth there is within this universe, it belongs to God, and we as sons of God have the right to take advantage of this wealth, but no more than what we require. That's all. That's the quota part. This is spiritual communism. If you take more, then you become punishable. This is the law of nature. Now, if we abide by the laws of nature, we have what we need and we don't have the punishment that goes along with encroaching on the laws of nature. Very simple. And how does nature work? Under the direction of Isha, because he's both the owner and well as the controller. So we abide by the ownership and controllership of the Supreme, and we have a harmonious situation between ourselves and nature, between ourselves and other living entities, because there's a harmonious relationship between ourselves and the Supreme. Again, Prabhupada's words. Because the Supreme Being, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the complete person, he has complete and perfect intelligence to adjust everything by means of his different potencies. So it's not, if Krishna is inattentive, he is in the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, but he's not he's not a limited person like us. He has so many potencies and so many personal expansions, and through those personal expansions, there's so many potencies are doing so many things, and all that's being adjusted, as was spoken before in the Canto 8 verse, by his Shiradakshay Vishnu or Paramatma feature. There's another reference. This is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13 in Bombay. If everything belongs to Krishna, where's the question of material? There is nothing material. Everything is spiritual, but we do not know how to use it. Therefore, it is material. When you forget Krishna, when you forget the proprietorship of Krishna upon everything, that is material. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate. This is the injunction of the Goswamis, that we have to accept everything as Krishna's. That is the fact. Now, in putting all this together, it was very clear. It is very clear that there's symmetry between what is in the Upanishad, specifically here, the Isopanisad, specifically the first mantra of Isopanisad, and Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because the source is the same. The Supreme Lord isn't going to contradict himself. We may see contradictions or something like that, but there's no contradiction. There's symmetry. And once again, the principle of the first mantra, everything is owned and controlled by the Supreme. Everything belongs to Krishna. This particular lecture is all spiritual because it's from Krishna. And material comes in by the indication that there's forgetfulness of Krishna. We don't know how to use it, and therefore it is commonly, the distinction is made spiritual material based upon remembrance and forgetfulness of Krishna. When you forget Krishna, you forget the proprietorship of Krishna upon everything that is material. And that accept things in relation to Krishna, that's spiritual. Here's a little summary, and we're almost done. Mantra 1. The infallible. Did you lose me for a bit there? Yes? Okay. So what I'm going to do here, let's see what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go back to the beginning of this page. I don't know what happened. The infallible Vedic wisdom comes to us through disciplic succession from Krishna, and in that way is saved from human imperfection. From it, we learn the details of the Lord's perfect, complete arrangement for us, sometimes known as the Ishavasya system. All species have their quotas by His grace. For example, cow produces milk, which she does not require. That was the cow section from the purport. And the human species is able to utilize this. The cow's quota is grass. Again, the capitalists and communists are fond of fighting over the resources of material nature, but they should understand that these resources are the property of the Lord and not fight for so-called proprietorship over them. Such fighting may be a type of so-called quota for cats and dogs, as they're acting under the dictates of nature and do not receive karmic reactions from doing so. But if humans imitate them, the humans will receive severe reactions, as the Lord's arrangement does not allow this for them. Again, human quota. The Lord has given humans greater facility so they can become God realized. But if they do not fulfill their quota of Krishna consciousness, they will fall down. Even material piety, such as vegetarianism, falls short of this mark. But if one offers vegetarian food to the Lord and dedicates one's life to serving him, one can go back to Godhead. Prabhupada makes it sound so simple. And the principles involved are quite simple. Let's see what's next. This is just meant to be a summary. Now, is the path easy? Well, yes, in principle. And there's some effort that's required on our side. But the good news is there's plenty of mercy on the other side. And if we extend ourselves to living by that purpose, the Isavasya principle, then we become stronger and Krishna will help us and we can reach the goal. This is a saying that I've seen people put on their cell phone, or those who stand for nothing fall for anything. Now, this is where it comes from. Alexander Hamilton, nice to know, a politician, understands you have to stand for something. So let's stand for the Isavasya spirit. It's easy to dodge our responsibilities, but we cannot dodge the consequences for dodging our responsibilities. That's another nice saying. So, human form of life has a purpose. The Vedas are to provide us a clear roadmap for that purpose and how to achieve it. And a responsible life is to hear carefully what that purpose is and how to achieve it. And that's responsible life. So don't be irresponsible and dodge responsibilities. So guess what? That's mantra 1, Isopanisad. Now, I understand you're going through systematically the primary Bhakti Shastri texts. So my guess is there's going to be some discussion. And let's see from this verse or from the previous verse, or for that matter, whatever you would like, if there's some discussion topics on mantra 1, Sri Isopanisad.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my most humble obeisances at the lotus feet.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, we are extremely grateful to you for spending your valuable time with us. I could remember many years back, I asked a question, Maharaj. We read scriptures. We don't understand, but when you explain, then it is very easy to understand those things. That time you remember, that's why you mentioned that that's why you require a spiritual master. So we are very fortunate that we have.
Were you able to see the slides or not?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes? Because the chat box says
Last summary part we have not seen the slide, but all other slides we have seen, Maharaj.
should I go back and have you see the slides?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. These are the ones you couldn't see?
This we have seen. From here we have not seen.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let us just cut and paste from the purport of Mantra 1. Here's just a little graphic. Nothing worth doing is ever easy. Here's the Alexander Hamilton quote. Those who stand for nothing fall for anything. And this is the last slide. That's the part you missed, yes?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. So I don't know how that happened, but here's the slides.
Maharaj,
Okay.
the question is,
Any discussion from anybody?
the question is that most of us are grihasthas and we have so many responsibilities, thinking that it is my responsibility to make my children more educated. I should have good savings and other things. So that's why we merge into works. And instead of simple living and high thinking, we spend our time in other direction. So by doing these things, we are wasting our valuable time. And because we are in the Kali Yuga, so we think that yes, that's what we have to live in this particular way. So what are the some points that we should remember that we should not go to this, means there is a line which we should not cross to remain in devotional service properly?
Well, all those things that you say that householders, we as householders do, are not to be neglected. However, the Isavasya part is not to be neglected either. And the difficulty is when the God-centeredness is neglected. So my response to your question is, it's not, so a word I don't like is balance. Like, how do I balance between my spiritual material? I don't like that. No, even the notion, I don't like it. Why? Because everything is meant for Krishna. So it comes back to this, what is appropriate for me as a householder, or for that matter, as a sannyasi, what's appropriate for me. And it's very customized and very personal. The principles of maintaining, extending care to family members, etc., is a duty, it's an imperative duty of a householder. And how to do those things in Krishna consciousness. And my response to that question is by proper sadhana, by proper sanatana dharma activities in one's life every day, it adds spiritual strength to the gona dharma activities that are other than the primary spiritual activities. I've been referring to Brahma Samhita text 51 to many people, where this question is asked, and the circumstance is Brahma has to create, and he doesn't want to lose all of this nice realization that he's gotten through his austerities and mantra chanting, etc., and the revelations that's been imparted to him within his heart by Krishna's kindness. So as he builds his universe that he's supposed to do, and he knows he's supposed to do it for Krishna, how do I not lose my Krishna consciousness? So that's a very nice purport, verse and purport for householders to read. Your question was, what are some considerations that we as householders should be keeping? Keep Krishna at the center. Keep Krishna at the center, starting with your spiritual practices portion of your day, and then the application of the teachings the rest of the day that you're doing your daily activities in this world. That's my recommendation.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Anybody else wants to ask? Acharya Ratna Prabhu. Acharya Ratna Prabhu, you are not, the voice is not coming. Anybody next?
Acharya Ratna, you have to unmute yourself. Do we have to let him unmute him? He's unmuted. Acharya Ratna, speak up. We can't hear you, Acharya Ratna. You have to do something to your computer. We can't hear you.
Anybody else? Please raise the hand. Yes, Adisas Prabhu.
Guru Maharaj, no question. My mother just wanted to say Hare Krishna to you.
Well, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Well, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
My Wi-Fi here is unstable, and for that reason, I'm not showing my video screen. Here's see if what happens. Here's my video screen. I'm in China. See all my hair. So, but it's unstable connection, and so I don't want to cause disruption. When in China, you have to do what the Chinese do, and that's you don't have a shaved head and Sika.
Okay, Acharya Ratna Prabhu, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my most humble obeisances at your lotus feet.
That's good.
Maharaj, my question is that all the animals except human being, they always accept their quota of foods or whatever necessity for them. But this human being being human being, it has a propensity of accepting more and lot more than what actually needed for him. So here, what is the root defect, and is in that sense human being is inferior?
What was the last part? What was the inferior part? Say the last part again, just the last part, not the whole thing. Satyavrata, what was the last part of what he said?
Acharya Ratna, please repeat your question, last part.
Maharaj, my question is
Not
that
the whole thing.
different.
People have
Yes,
a
the
tendency
last part is that
people have a tendency to take more than necessary. Why is that? What's the principle behind accepting more than necessary? That's what you want to know.
yes,
Yes?
yes, Maharaj.
Well, there's free will and there's misuse of free will.
Yes, Maharaj.
There's intelligence and there's greater intelligence, but the greater intelligence can be misused into greed and accepting more. So human nature regulates the animals, and intelligence is meant to regulate human beings. But human beings have more intelligence but can misuse it due to that free will that they have. So that's the cause. Greater capacity, misuse of that greater capacity. I see two other hands. Anant.
Rakesh Roshan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. Guru Maharaj, my question is, means how to avoid our hankering at mental level for material gains or material property like this.
Very good question. And let's take the approach of saying, where does that hankering come from? And if you can find out the root of where the hankering comes from, you can cut off the tendency of the hankering. So the hankering is similar to Acharya Ratna's question. That is, there's this hankering to be an enjoyer. That's material existence. We're here, where the bodies that we have is like a flag flapping in the wind, letting people know I have separate desires. Just see, here's my body that's meant to provide me the facility for fulfilling separate desires. So when we get the human form of life, that amplifies with the misuse of our human form or our human capacity, intelligence, etc. And we find ourselves in a compromised situation. It's our material existence. So now, back to your question, how do you curb such tendency? How do you curb such tendency? It's the Raso Varjam Raso Pyasya Pram Drishtavada Vartate. The cure is Krishna Bhakti, that is, I am finding a greater satisfaction in using this human resource, my intelligence, my wealth, is back to this, the four principles that Satyavrata asked me to speak about, prana, artire, diya, vacha. I have seen, and I have personally experienced, misuse of those things. And it burns. Dushparena, anulajancha. So I've come to the realization that's not the platform of satisfaction. Let me change the channel. So then that's where it comes from, and the change the channel is what your question is. And that is, let me direct myself to taking these same resources, these four, and directing them as I can, as my intelligence provides, as my submission to the scripture and the instructions of our spiritual teachers tells me, submit myself to those higher principles, and then there's a higher taste. We can overcome the lesser taste by higher taste. Yes?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
It's easier said than done. That's like this next to the last slide. It says, good things aren't achieved easily. Here's the slide. Nothing worth doing is ever easy. So it's not to say, oh, that's easy. It may not be easy, but that's the principle that you turn the dimmer switch brighter and the darkness is dispelled. You engage yourself more fully in activities of devotional practice, sadhana stage, and the darkness is dispelled because the light becomes brighter. That's how it works. And if you don't do that, then it's Daivihiyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Dharatyaya, unfortunately. Okay. Anant, how about you? You see your hand up.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. So question is, how do I remove the tendency of imitating while reading or hearing your lecture? How can I properly receive it? Why? That is my question.
From your heart, that's how.
Yes,
So there's a very nice principle that's taught in the 11th canto Uddhava Gita section, where sound enters the ear, goes to the mind, is evaluated by the intelligence, and it can stop there. However, spiritual sound goes directly to the para platform. That's the language of Krishna to Uddhava. It goes to the spiritual platform and it touches the soul. So if we can hear instructions with the aptitude that this is Krishna speaking, or through a representative, but it's Krishna speaking, and let it cleanse my heart, Chaita Darpada Marjanam, etc. Let it cleanse my heart so that I can hear with spiritual ear the spiritual sound and become spiritually enlivened. It's a principle of sound, and how that sound touches the heart or the soul, then those coverings are not what's simply operating, processing with your mind and accepting sometimes and forgetting some other times and rejecting some other times, but not just on the platform of the mind or not just on the platform of intelligence and I get the concept. And to live that way, it has to touch the soul. Intermittently, we can practice and not practice. It's unsteady bhakti. We can perform our sadhana nicely, and then it can also become slackened. So now, what to do? So hear very carefully. Hear from the heart. This is meant from Krishna to me to bring me to him. That's this sound vibration. Let me hear it with that kind of attentiveness. Now, again, it's easier said than done, like the image that's on my screen here, because anyway.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
So it's not easy, but it's the application. Okay, thank you, Anand. Sadhu Sangananda.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. Maharaj, when we hear from some other sources, like then the point which we have heard from you, that becomes more effective. Like it touches the same thing my Guru Maharaj is also telling. So, how much important it is to hear from other sources also apart from hearing from spiritual master?
What do you mean other sources?
Like from other devotees from ISKCON itself, like authorized sources.
Outside ISKCON or within ISKCON?
Within ISKCON.
Okay. How your question is how important it is to hear other sources within ISKCON besides one's. That's your question?
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, depends on how much time you have in your daily activity. If you have time, you can hear multiple sources. However, especially in the beginning, it's good to hear primarily from our founder Acharya and our Diksha Guru. And if there are primary Shiksha sources that we hear, then that's fine. And then from time to time, because we're part of an organization, there are other speakers, and we may hear very well from those other speakers, and that the fidelity of that speaker, although style may be diverse, how much is it in alignment with our founder Acharya and my principal source of hearing, my guru? So for sake of diversity, for sake of being part of a larger organization, it's wholesome. How important is it? It's not, supposing persons don't have so much time because they're busy, etc., then it's not as important. It has a place in our life because we're part of an organization where there are many nice speakers. How's that?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Pavan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I am extremely fortunate and indebted for the Isavasam class which you have given. And I feel that this Isavasam consciousness is the outcome of a very high culture and of Vedic wisdom. It is very much liking all around, including in me, including in us. What way I can revive this Isavasam principle in me and also bring some importance of this principle in surrounding where I live?
I'm hearing a comment. I don't hear a question.
Maharaj, my question is, how can I revive this Isavasam principle in my life?
Well,
and also,
how do you awaken spiritual life? By hearing. How do you awaken spiritual life? Adau shraddha tatak sadhu sangha tata bhajana kriya. So by that method, that's the method. It's not different than what you're doing right now. So that's the method. And then taking it, as I said, to heart, or it's meant for me, from Krishna to me through the medium of his representatives. Let me understand Krishna's giving me a rope. Let me just hold on to that rope. That's the application part. That's how to.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
I'm looking at the clock. The clock says it's 8 o'clock over here. So it's whatever it is over there. Of course, it's Sunday. So you're in the earlier part of your day. I'm in the later part of my day. I think it's time to end the class and we'll move on to whatever else we're supposed to be doing. How's that?
Yes, Maharaj.
Is that all right?
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Guru. Hare Krishna.